Major funding for this program is made possible by grants from HSH Nordbank New York branch and First American Title Insurance Company of New York, Perfect Building Maintenance, Greenberg Traurig LP, Allied Partners, the Moynihan Group. Additional funding for this program is made possible by grants from Antares Real Estate, Arbor Realty Trust, C.B. Richard Ellis, Cushman and Wakefield, Essex Capital Partners, Fremont Investment and Loan, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Muss Development LLC, Rosenthal and Rosenthal Inc., Signature Bank, Stonehenge Partners, Swig Equities, the Engel Berman Group, the Wickhoff Group, Titan Capital, YL Real Estate Developers.
New Jersey. What is happening in New Jersey? Allegedly, certain people call Jersey City and Hoboken the sixth borough. Not everyone agrees. Then there's other parts of New Jersey. Certain people only see New Jersey by going to the Giants and Jets games. But these guys over here have a vested interest today, and they will tell us what's happening in the office market in New Jersey. My guests today include Mitch Hirsch, President and CEO of McCallie Realty, Richard Lefrak, Chairman, CEO of Lefrak Organization, and last but not least, the Chairman and CEO of SJP Properties, Steve Pazicki. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Is Jersey City and Hoboken the sixth borough? Do you really believe that that's the sixth borough? I mean, very few people think.
I actually believe it's the second borough, because if you look at the density of office development in Jersey City, it would be on its own something like the 14th largest CBD in the United States. It's actually larger than Pittsburgh, Denver, in terms of the total square footage of office development. So if you're looking for a submarket of Manhattan, I would say Jersey City is not the sixth borough. I would say it's the second borough.
Why do people go to Jersey City? Why would a company like J.P. Morgan Chase, Viacom, Schwab, Thompson Financial. What
many different reasons.
Yeah, well, why?
It offers.
I mean, they like being in your buildings. I mean,
well, that's of course part of it, but I think more importantly, it's a very diverse community. Jersey City, Hoboken have emerged, and in many respects gentrified, with large residential communities, great amenities that get better every day, very high quality assets that we've all collectively created along the waterfront, and a very available workforce, partly due to the transportation, public transportation, vehicular access, so you can draw from a very wide demographic to support a workforce. And so we find it becoming a more important part of the metropolitan area all the time.
What about Hoboken? I mean, it's the home Frank Sinatra, but besides that, and some good restaurants, better than Jersey City from what I hear.
Hoboken is a unique small city. It's clearly the poster child for New Jersey's urban centers and turning those around. It is the hub of transportation for the waterfront. All the trains, buses, paths are anchored there. And New York is expanding all the time, and we're the beneficiary of that. And clearly, why do people come? It's a great environment. One might say they come because it's tough to see Manhattan from Manhattan, but it's a beautiful view from Jersey City or Hoboken to see Manhattan on a nice clear night, all lit up from the other side of the shore. But I think it's clearly, it's price driven. Manhattan real estate is expensive.
Technology changed a lot also. As the nature of the financial service industry changed, and many of the firms that you mentioned, often the financial service industry, their demands for their environment changed. They needed buildings with backup power. They needed buildings with big floor loads, high ceilings, so they could do wire underneath the floor for their trading people. They needed a lot of different types of technology than were available, easily available in facilities that were existing in New York that had been built in many instances 50 years and older, 50 years ago. And so part of the reason was the environment, part of the reason was the, let's say, affordability, part of the reason was the labor pool, part of the reason was the transportation, and part of the reason was the type of infrastructure that you could give them to run their business.
What was the first office building you built in Jersey City?
I
think you first built residential and then you built the retail. But when did you build your first office building?
The first office building we built in 1987, 88. All our buildings have, Newport Office Center 1, 2, 3. We're now about to start maybe number 9, but was Newport Office Center 1, and it was a high-tech building. It has a capacity for 100% backup power in the building.
And who moved there? Who was the tenant?
The tenant at that time was very interesting. It was a Japanese company that was in the business of providing shared services for data centers, okay? And they leased the entire building at that time, right, with the intention of subleasing it to a variety of companies. That was a common practice in Japan at that time. And that was the first office building we built. It was about 450,000 square feet.
Was it built on spec, or it was
it was built on spec, like every building I ever built out there.
And what about you? When was the first office building you did?
The first new development was in 1989 at the Grove Street, 95 Christopher Columbus Drive, built over a PATH station. The major tenant was built on spec. The major tenant was Pershing, which at that time was a division of DLJ. But I think another nuance is the Harborside Financial Center that we own, which was built at the turn of the last century and evolved from what was a series of warehouses, cold storage warehouses, to become probably the first office user, which was Bankers Trust.
Right, exactly.
In Harborside Plaza 1, and that was in the mid-'70s. They were the pioneers that moved their back office operations into New Jersey, Jersey City.
Well, in Jersey City, we bought one of the Colgate buildings, which was a factory, big floor plates, heavy loads, and we no utilities. Basically, cut out new elevator cores into the center of the building, brought in all new utilities, and Merrill Lynch has leased the whole thing and continued to lease the building, and it's got all the infrastructure and conveniences that they need, and it's right in Merrill's core in Jersey City. And then in '97, we built phase 1 of Hoboken, 550,000 feet, which John Wiley & Sons anchored. And a year later, we started Hoboken 2, which is a 550,000 foot building that Marsh McLennan is the anchor. They're about 425 of the 550.
These companies aren't going to Jersey. They're going there for a reason. What's the reason? Tell my audience, why do they go to Jersey? Okay, good labor force.
Cost of occupancy.
Don't tell me it's the restaurants, occupancy.
Cost of occupancy is a very important driver. We've gone through an exercise recently to evaluate a new building at Harborside for a Midtown-centric company, and we all know what's occurring with the rent structures in Midtown, and these gentlemen all own Midtown buildings. We can build a new building down at Harborside for approximately $400 a square foot. And so you can figure that the rents are in the low to mid 40s on a gross basis. Brand new, institutional quality, Class A construction, large floor plates were needed for trading floors, et cetera. And in Midtown, the cost of new construction is...
With land, all in, probably rivaling $1,000 a foot. Now that land prices have gone up, probably $1,250 a foot. because they've certainly spiked in the last
So
year.
basically, you know, what we were saying, you know, for the company, and I was discussing this today with a lawyer who has a national law firm. He's paying $60 at a low price in 200 Park Avenue. He needed another 50,000 square feet. They said, "You want space in the Pan Am? I'm aging myself.
You're right.
That
MetLife
Life building.
building.
You want space over there? It's $120 a foot." He's making a decision that he just signed a lease for 50,000 square feet in White Plains at $23 a foot. You know, and his comment, and this is a very valid comment, when you're a professional service firm where the profits go to your bottom line, or even when you're a public corporation, you're trying to keep those profits for yourself. And not everybody is a hedge fund, and they can be across the street on your building on 57th Street. You know, they want, or be in Greenwich.
You know, Michael, the market is always going to be self-correcting in the end, and whether a lawyer chooses to go up to White Plains to try to balance his rent, or people are coming to the waterfront in New Jersey, that's going to be a self-correcting thing. You're right. Many of the high rents in New York are really because the high value added capital are the humans, and the rent becomes a very small part of the equation of the operation of the business. But many businesses can't sustain that rent. The interesting thing, you know, as I see the future a little bit, is to see whether the nature of the tenancy on the waterfront changes somewhat, and it's just not financial service companies that are coming out there, but other companies or other businesses that can't sustain the very high rents they're going to have to sustain if they stay in Midtown Manhattan.
You know, we were talking before the show. I realize that your car has never passed Jersey City. You know, you're allowed to go to Jersey City, no passport, with the exception of Trenton.
Right.
Now, Roseland, I mean, that's like the mecca of the accounting firms and all the law firms. Everybody's in Roseland and Morristown. I mean, I still remember once in a while I'm allowed to go over there. I have to get a visa. But you have all these accounting firms, these professional firms, these smaller firms. They're headquartered. J.H. Cohn's out there, you know, some of these regional firms. Why are they headquartered out there? Rent? They like the suburbs? Senior partners living out there? I mean, what's...
A combination of all of the
Well,
above.
a combination of all above. You know, it's quality of life, it's schools, it's you know, the housing, the variety of housing. Jersey has an incredible variety of housing. It has an incredible relative to Connecticut and Long Island, an incredible transportation network, both vehicular and mass transit. And we have a very bright labor base. It might sound corny, but Thomas Edison, you know, drew a lot of brilliant minds to Edison, New Jersey, way back when.
And you guys both own property.
And we're
And
headquartered.
we do own property there. But more importantly, Lucent, or AT&T, before the divestiture, took all their money and put it in research and development up in Berkeley Heights. That spawned an enormous amount of research-type people. I think that's why New Jersey was able to benefit when the pharmaceuticals were looking for a new home and Europe wasn't very friendly anymore. And I think that's why you saw the pharmaceuticals migrate to New Jersey in such a huge way. And that certainly helped as Lucent and AT&T has you know, downsized and right-sized.
Lucent, AT&T, Cisco, these companies have downsized. I mean, they have left, which has made, you know, we were joking, but it isn't, you know, you're friendly competitors, but, you know, McCallie takes a client from SJP, you don't have to worry about that. You know, they're in the suburbs. Okay?
But many of these industries are evolving and they've stabilized. You've now seen Verizon move its headquarters to Morris County, New Jersey. As a result of that, you've got many different industries that are spawning as part of, you know, the telecommunications industry. And as Steve indicated, we have a wealth of well-educated, talented telecommunications engineers, scientists, many of whom work for Bell Labs and Lucent and Avaya and many technology companies. And so we can support these industries as they grow and even in pharmaceuticals, while for many years New Jersey was considered the medicine cabinet of the nation, And we've seen various iterations change that industry, put it under pressure due partly to tort reform issues or tort litigation, R&D issues. But we've seen now a new age of biotechnology companies, life science companies emerge.
Correct.
And those companies can support their workforce because New Jersey has the labor available.
When I had a place in New Jersey and I had a business in New Jersey, hard for me to remember, but it is, I remember going out to Princeton. And Princeton, you had all these office buildings were built in Princeton. Merrill Lynch opened up this corporate center, and they had all these things. And then Landis built property on Route 9,
Center.
Carnegie Center over
right.
there, and then in East Brunswick, where they always have the elections. You had the hotel over there. What happened? I still remember Steve Siegel leaving brokerage, becoming a developer, and then the world died. Chubb decided. Chubb, what happened? You remember that well?
Sure, we remember that very well.
What happened?
Look, the markets have continued to grow. Steve Siegel does much better in brokerage, and he's happier. And we have to suffer with all this.
He's also in the
enormous
residential up in the Bronx. He likes that.
Nobody has to cry for Steve. He's done very well for himself in and out of development and brokerage.
Well, the markets are cyclical, and we've seen between us, many different cycles. But the reality is that there's been so little new supply added to our markets in New Jersey that it's really insulated the existing supply.
New York City has 14 million square feet? No, I'm sorry. 481, 500 million
Close
square
to
feet
500.
of office space.
Right.
How much office space is in New Jersey?
It's widely thought to be about 160 million square feet.
And that's the entire state?
That is the central to northern part of the state.
And how much of that 160 is in Jersey City and Hoboken?
Jersey City's a 20 million
million.
square foot
Jersey
market.
City's 20 million.
It's a small market in comparison to New York.
But if you look at it in comparison to cities like Pittsburgh or
Then it's
Denver or
large.
something, it's comparable in size.
Well, and if you look, as Mitch said, if you look at the entire state, you're looking at a state of 160 million square feet. That's probably
It's the
in
fifth
the top
largest in the
5
nation, if not
office
the fourth
markets
now.
in the country. And if you just to break it up, Morris County itself, 35 million feet. Somerset County, 25 million feet.
But isn't this,
Middlesex
Steve,
County,
this-
20 million
I
feet.
don't hate to interrupt, but really aren't those office buildings over the last 30 years? 30 years ago, you didn't have those Morris County office buildings. You didn't have Roseland. I mean, in the
You had the emergence.
You had
of
the
it.
emergence. You had these two-story,
Most of that product
Larry
was
Berger
built,
type of.
Most of it was built in
type
the
of
80s.
property. Right,
That's
in the
correct.
80s.
Right,
I'm
the
saying,
bulk- the
but
bulk of the-
35 years ago, you didn't have that. Yeah, you had these small,
correct.
you had these Larry Paragano type of two-story buildings or something.
Well,
like
you
that.
had Belmead building very lightweight, inexpensive drive-up buildings to meet a market that was $5, $6 net market. So it's changed dramatically since then.
There's this big city in New Jersey. It's called Newark. At one time, they had all of these department stores. Prudential is still headquartered there. The accounting firms before Roseland, you had these accounting firms. You had the law firms over there. I mean, there's still one or two, I think, use the corporate
yes, there are.
headquarters there.
A number of them.
Okay.
Number of them.
But so what's happening in Newark? You got a new mayor. Yeah, the other guy, I will say, the thief, as you would say over there, is no longer here. What's happening in Newark? I mean, you got good transportation.
That change is dramatic. Cory Booker is such a breath of fresh air. Not only him, but his entire staff he's brought in. People that really care about all the things that are important to Newark and the people in Newark and to the state are involved right now. And you mentioned Prudential. Art Ryan is, he works as many hours for Newark as he does for Prudential, sometimes it seems. But there's very committed people to bringing Newark back. I mean, it is the transportation hub of the state. It's kind of funny if people come from the West Coast, people come from offshore, and they were to look at officing in New Jersey, the guy would come off the airplane with a map
Right.
pointing to Newark.
Well, the
Because-
reality was post 9/11, and we all, of course, remember that tragic event. The two submarkets that filled up immediately were along the path line, the waterfront in Jersey City and Newark, for companies that were centric.
But
to
those
Manhattan.
companies were on the path line. They didn't. They were Newark was it was like a self-contained. Gateway was a self-contained community. You didn't get out of Gateway, you stayed at Gateway. You wouldn't walk around Newark. Crime was still high,
Right.
you know, and
It's changing slowly. There are many socioeconomic issues that Newark has to deal with, as Steve indicated. Cory Booker's committed to it. He's got some very talented people. We're working on 2 projects in Newark right now because we have the confidence in this administration that they'll change.
Richard, the car goes, I know, to, you know, Jersey City. What about Newark?
My car?
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say, I never would say
Never.
But again, you know, as the city, the dynamics of the city have changed, the politics have improved. A lot of it is going to depend on where the government of the state government is committed to improving the infrastructure, spending money. The mayor there apparently is committed to cleaning up the crime in the city. I would make a comment, though, which may be of interest, is that if you look at the demographic trends in the state of New Jersey, it is not unlikely that Jersey City will be the largest city in the state, not too far in the future, because the level and intensity of residential development that's underway in Jersey City now could actually propel it to being the most populated city in the state of New Jersey. And that in and of itself could change the dynamic for Newark.
Correct.
Because it could be less important politically as a, you know, it may be symbolically very important, but it may lose some of its political importance if another city eclipses it in population.
Transportation is very important in New Jersey. We just said that, okay? That's why Jersey City, Hoboken, and even Newark. A couple of years ago, this new Secaucus train station was built. What they call it, Lautenberg
The
Center.
Lautenberg Center.
Yeah.
What effect has that had on office space in New Jersey?
I think it ultimately will have a positive impact on office space in New Jersey because there, for example, in the Meadowlands, there's a rail connection being built as we sit here that will connect to the Lautenberg Center, will connect that project called Xanadu and the stadiums to Lautenberg Center.
Where
in
you're
Secaucus.
building some offices, perhaps?
We have the potential of 2 million feet there, plus a hotel. And that will have a direct connection, or Lautenberg Center has a direct connection to Penn Station in New York. So you're beginning to change the demographic mixture when you can have these rail links.
Richard?
Yeah, the other thing which I guess you referred to, but you didn't really delve into too deeply, is that they have now the light rail system, which is another form of mass transit, is now being proliferated as well, and eventually that I think will tie up to
There is actually a
spur
leg
that's
built
going to go
there,
up
right.
to this Secaucus community as well, and that kind of unifies Bergen County. Ultimately, it's going to go to Bergen County, and it's going to all the way down to Bayonne. So you're starting to see the beginning of a more comprehensive transportation network. We don't know what the future is going to be for the automobile. You know, we just don't know it. You know, what oil prices are going to be, what the green environment and demands are going to be. But I would say that any state or community that isn't investing in mass transit is making a huge mistake. One thing I can say positively about the state of New Jersey is that they are making these types of investments and improving their mass transit system, and that will stand them in good stead competitively with other parts of the country, because automobile dependency may become a thing of the past.
It's also
just may be a thing of the past.
rail tunnel being proposed.
Right, exactly.
Connecting Manhattan and New Jersey.
Right, so
correct.
you're starting to see some real planning, and my hat's off to whoever it is in the state that's thinking that way.
You know, well, Secaucus, I think, I know as our friend and your partner, Bill Mack, says to me, you know, Leonard Stern was the lucky guy that he started getting parts of Secaucus first in the Secaucus area. Secaucus has had a lot of office, really, over the years. And
It's done well.
And it's done well, and it's convenient to the city. I mean, but at that time, there wasn't transportation. Everybody who went to Secaucus had to go via automobile or the bus, and they had to depend. Even when he built his first building, Hart's Mouth, in the residential, didn't do that well. What do we see with, Fort Lee? Everybody else, you were talking about great views. Fort Lee has a great view, great location. What about the
great residential communities? That's
great residential communities, good commutes into New York. Fort Lee is a great residential community. Just to step back and kind of look at a bigger picture, certainly we see Midtown Manhattan, tenants for large, particularly our corporate tenants need the big floor plates and very few sites left. You got to look at New Jersey as one of the oldest states in the Union. The bulk of the population is north of the Raritan River. Most of these suburban areas we talk about that Richard doesn't frequent very often, the Parsippany's, the Somerset counties, the Middlesex counties, they're also getting built out. So what you're going to see is as you've seen now, I mean, I have never witnessed in my career the love of the urban center like we see in Manhattan right now. And why aren't some of these tenants jumping over to a more economic rent scenario? They're not jumping over because they love the city, because they want to be here, and we're seeing it on the residential side. And the love of residential in Manhattan is not limited to Manhattanites. I mean, we are shocked by the number of out-of-town buyers that just want to have a place in Manhattan. So the urban center, and particularly Manhattan, is probably as vibrant as it's ever been, and we will see, people making. I think Richard said it correctly. Self-leveling is what we're seeing in the markets, and they do take a while to occur. But in the long term, we'll even see law firms bifurcating to put back office across the river and keep front office in Manhattan, but it will take a while for that correction.
Remember, you got to think of an apartment as just a license to access a job market. Think of it that way for a minute. I live in New York. I access the job market in New York. The job market in New York is particularly lucrative because there are some very, very, very high-paying jobs here. And if I want to access that market, I've got to be here. Okay. So that in and of itself tells you what let's say a lot of the romance is right now, okay? And we all go like this and hope that the financial service industry is as, let's say, ebullient as it's been the last 10 years or so, and that we all prosper as a result.
But look, there's no question that New York City has great cachet.
But Jersey's growing.
But Jersey is
right. Jersey's growing, Jersey boys and everything. Hard to believe. Half an hour has passed. I'd like to thank Mitch Hurst, Mac Cali Realty,
Thanks for having
Richard Lefrak, the Lefrak Organization, and last but not least, Steve Pazicki, SJP Properties, to talk about New Jersey. Next week, we go to Westchester, which you happen to know also about.
Right.
Westchester and Greenwich. Thank you.
Major funding for this program is made possible by grants from HSH Nordbank New York Branch and First American Title Insurance Company of New York, Perfect Building Maintenance, Greenberg Traurig LP, Allied Partners, the Moynihan Group. Additional funding for this program is made possible by grants from Antares Real Estate, Arbor Realty Trust, C.B. Richard Ellis, Cushman and Wakefield, Essex Capital Partners, Fremont Investment and Loan, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Muss Development LLC, Rosenthal and Rosenthal Inc., Signature Bank, Stonehenge Partners, Swig Equities, the Engel Berman Group, the Wickhoff Group, Titan Capital, YL Real Estate Developers.